Welcome to Optimal Game State. Today, I wanted to talk about some of the terrain kits from Archon Studios. This is a Polish company that's been churning out lots of content aimed at the Dungeons and Dragons scene. We're going to focus on some of their terrain kits. They do have a number of different lines that cover various styles. The ones we're looking at currently are some of their Dungeons and Laser line, and in specific, a series of kits that were made for the Pathfinder game. They do produce a number of dungeon kits that have full-size walls, but in this case, they've gone for this half-size approach. Presumably, it's a little bit cheaper for them, and as it's less plastic, but more importantly for us, it's a little easier to get in and move the models around. So we just take it that the walls block line of sight, and we play on. As I'll show you later, these kits are fully modular, so you paint them up and assemble them on the fly into the board you want. All the kits they produce use the same system, so you can combine sets as you collect them. At least the dungeon kits do. There are some that are slightly different. Now, Archon Studios do a line of miniatures and have some cool options for what I guess we could call dungeon furniture. That's the random stuff that would appear in a dungeon or city or whatever. Currently, in this line, they have 3 kits. Now, this is specifically to this line of Pathfinder dungeons. So there's a dwarf mine, there is a generic dungeon, and then there's a set of wooden floors like you'd have in a fancy building, like a pub or bar or whatever. Mechanically, of course, it's all the same, but it does somewhat set the tone. All right, and here we have the Dwarven terrain. So this is the Dwarven mine. There is a ton of bits and pieces. I've only taken out the actual floors. And then, yeah, there's like plenty of these little sections that you can add to the walls as you're kind of working around it. This is everything, all of the floors in it. So that kind of gives you an idea of, how much of it there is. So yeah, you would probably need to get a few of these kits if you wanted to do a full Warcry board. If you wanted to do a small section, you definitely could get away with it, especially if you want to do kind of a rolling map or something like that. The system for it, so you can see here, it's all kind of plugged. So you can paint up this, and then when you're ready, it gets plugged in here. And then similarly, if I take this off, we can see that this section here I have put together, and then we've got the little plugs holding it together. So that's how it works. So you are able to paint this up. It'll be relatively modular. So if you wanted to do a underground mine, you have everything you need there. The size, that's the reason I had this one set up. The scaling is pretty much spot on for what you'd expect. So, that does look right for a Warcry human getting through a door. So it's not like this is at the wrong scale. This definitely does feel like it's been designed for the Warcry. What is it, like 28 heroic or 32mm, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, the scale does fit and is right for it. Why do I have my bits? So I do have a ton of bits and pieces in it here. So these are all the connectors. The white bits, ignore them. They didn't come with this kit. These are part of a different kit. But all of the grey parts, that's from a GW kit, all of the grey parts, so all the various wall sections, and, some lamps are all part of this one kit. And I think it was about 50 euros. So to give you a bit of context to it, so not that bad. If you wanted to get 2 of them, you'd have a pretty decent setup. While I'm here, I also wanted to briefly show off this one. Okay, this is the City Bits bundle. This is the furniture that I was talking about before. So yeah, you can kind of see some of the things. You've got a bathtub, random sacks. Yeah, you could put a fire in buildings. They're just bits and pieces. It depends what you're going to try to do with it. But there's this part here. Is part for a stall. A cart. This is the bit that I want to show. This is one of the reasons why I got this. This is a throne. So I'm going to be painting this up, and then we're going to be doing a room with vampires in it, so they can fight from their throne, as it were. But it's got lots of little random bits and pieces. There are like kind of generic bits of wood like that will definitely make its way easily into a game of Warcry. Stuff like the bearskin rug might be a little bit more uh, dressing. It's maybe less relevant for the board, but it lets you kind of add a little bit more character. And what did I have the problem? What did I make? Yeah, I mean, if you're in a building or in a town, there's a well, so just small little bits and pieces like that kind of helps round things out. A second style of kit they have are these environment packs. So here we've got a pretty big swamp board and a pile of terrain. I guess the idea here is to have the main board be a swamp, and then the plants and the planks are places you can properly walk on. This certainly would make an interesting board for Warcry, but I don't think it would necessarily be a great one. Now, there is a ton of stuff here, though. The dead trees alone could go on most of your battlefields, and the boat and planking, I guess they could make interesting features on a map, even if they're just like a small corner of it or something like that. This one's interesting, but maybe not my first go to. This one is a lot better. This is the Elven Woods kit. Again, we have a similarly sized paper mat, which is unfortunately 28 by 28 inches. So it is the wrong size for the 22 by 30-inch Warcry map. Now, if you were just starting out, you certainly could use it and you could have a good game on it. The kit has 6 trees in total, a bunch of boulders, and a pretty nice camp kit. I did pick this one up myself, mostly for the camp, and I do like the idea of having a Warcry warband chilling at the end of the day around a fire, only to be attacked by another warband. As you can see, the kit is pretty packed with stuff. The real question here is whether those rocky outcrops are going to be useful for you or not. There are 4 types of them on each sprue, and you get 3 of that sprue. So there is a decent amount of duplication going on. The trees are similar. There are 2 different types of sprue, and you get 3 of each for 6 in total. That might seem bad, but there's still a decent amount of variation in how you assemble them, so they don't really look that similar on the table. And here we have my Elven Woods kit. So the only thing I've actually done is I've assembled and painted these trees here. So I did add a base, so they do not come with the circle base. It's just like an MDF base. Thanks to Will for suggesting that, and just put some fluff. But they're quite nice. So you can see, let me turn it right, that the trunk is basically the exact same. There's no difference in it. And once you align them properly, yeah, so you can see this matches this. So those are the same. But because they plug into different sections, there is still a little bit of variety between the trees. So while they are basically the exact same three trees, then that you are going to get a decent amount of variety. So I'm just going to pull out this is the conifers. They do have a design where they have a base that's kind of a cut tree, and then you put the trunk into it. I'm not quite sure why they're doing that. I did not like it, and I just glued mine in. So that's I think maybe the option is that you could remove the tree and leave the base still in there, so people move around it, but whatever. So yeah, you basically cut out your trunk, it'll get assembled, a little bit of cleaning involved, stick it down, and then you add in your branches with leaves. The Because of the way it's done, I haven't assembled any of these yet, but at least it was for the other ones. You can get a little bit of variety in them, but trees are trees. Very happy with these. These were a good price and are going to look good on most of the battlefields. We also have a lot of fun stuff going on here. So you can see we've got a little tent. It's about the right scale. We've got a bedroll. which maybe is a little bit short, but we'll get the job done. Little campfire, which I think is adorable. Couple of stools, place to hang some clothes, little bits of pieces like that. So they're cool. The fact that I now have a camp, I think is great. I think it's a real good kind of story element. These pieces. So we have 3 of each of these. Is that yeah, 3 of each of those. Oh, and then is that all of them? I think this one here. Yeah. So there's 4 different block sections. The idea is that these are rocky growths, and as you can see, they're actually relatively big. So they're going to make good blocking terrain, somewhat. But they are ones that you can happily stand on. The tallest of it is probably this one here. Yeah. So yeah, it is going to block. There might be a little bit of line of sight on it. But yeah, I'd imagine for a lot it's going to block. These are packed with growth on top, and there's a lot of detail. So there's like a little stream flowing on this one. I think this one here has, yeah, there's like roots of a tree that was cut down. This one has a few little overgrown steps, and there's some pillars from an old civilization there. I think this one's a little bit more plain. Yeah. So it's got a lot of detail. Is my only dilemma with it. I am going to paint these at some point. It's probably going to be a rocky grey, and then I'm probably going to airbrush green onto the top, or dry brush green onto the top, and then hope for the best. And we'll see how that goes. But it's a good chunk, so it is something that they're going to have to climb up on, move around. It isn't super high, super tall. You could put other things on the battlefield that will block if you wanted, but I think this is relatively good. It's not as high as if you were doing like a slightly higher wall, but it's going to get the job done. So yes, I like this. This is a fantastic kit. I'm very, very happy with this, even if I do need to spend a little more time working through it. One kit that has yet to come out on general release is the Land of the Giants. I believe those who supported on Kickstarter will have received it, so you should be able to find some videos about it online. I don't want to say this is perfect for Warcry, as many people like having more buildings and levels. But this is a great looking kit. You've got tons of blocking terrain. There is some terrain you can stand on, and it generally fits the whole Age of Sigmar thing, with lots of old civilizations that were destroyed during the Age of Chaos. I really like this one. I will be picking this up as soon as it comes out. Moving over to another line of scenery, we have their rampart terrain. The majority of these seem to be focused at 40k battlefields, but this particular kit is of interest. So this is the Kazumi Temple, which has a kind of Aztec style theme to it, which would perfectly fit with the Norwood's crash ship. So you could run it as a train set all by itself, or incorporate it with some of the existing GW kits. The majority of this is just walls, but there are some floors so you can build in some levels. It can be put together with pegs, or you can use magnets, so the set can be rebuilt in various ways. From reviews I've seen on it, a lot of people seem to end up gluing them all together, just a lot easier, and make them a little bit more sturdy, I guess. Based on the back of the box, it looks like there's about 22 wall sections. I suspect what we're seeing in this image is a full box. That's somewhat similar to the number of walls in the original Warcry box, although that set did have the tower and the giant head, which, might kind of pad it out a little bit. You will need to track down a mat as well, so again, this kit doesn't have one. It is a very cool kit though, and if you wanted to get a few of them, I think you could do something really impressive. Goobertown Hobbies has a great video where he takes a bunch of these kits and used the dungeon walls from the earlier ones that we were looking at as roofs, and ended up kind of building some very, very impressive looking Aztec buildings out of it. After watching that, I have to admit I was sorely tempted to do that and try go for a Lustria campaign. All right, so why am I making this video? In case there was any doubt, I didn't get any of the kits for free, nor has anyone from Archon Studios been in touch. I saw the Elven woods in my local game store, and I really liked the trees, so I picked it up. Later, I picked up a Cities Bit box because it had a few things like the throne that I want to incorporate it into my Cursed City themed games of Warcry. So it's just lots of clutter, but when you're having a kind of a focus piece, sometimes it kind of brings the game a little bit more to life. Then, yeah, the Dwarf Mine seemed like a really good way to play out the first mission of the Curse of the Lichmaster, or Return of the Lichmaster. And I actually did pick up a box of 68 NPCs from Archon Studios. Also, among other things, there is a Dwarven Miner in there that I definitely wanted to get. So, for me, these kits are a way to round out the narrative experience of my boards. I already have a ton of Warcry terrain, don't really need to get more, but this is letting me make a different feel and kind of tell the story on the table a little bit easier. If you are a Warcry fan, I think the Elven Woods kit, and when it comes out, the Runes of the Giants kit are going to be great terrain bundles, whether you use them by themselves or mix them in with other scenery you have. They both seem to be relatively cheap, and they cover lots of ground. If you're a brand new player, I think this will also be the case, whether that's as your first set of terrain or to supplement something like the Scales of Talaxis box. The Kazumi Temple option is similar, in that it's a pretty good way to get that classic ruined building style of terrain with platforms. Again, the single box is relatively cheap, and definitely less than getting a GW box of terrain. Although, again, yeah, the mat is something that I keep mentioning. This one might be a little bit trickier to mix with other kits, as the Aztec style does seem to be very distinctive. That said, that does really fit well with Norwood, and especially if you're a player who likes running Lizardmen or Skink Warbands. It is something that you could expand into a major project, and you will get an amazing looking board at the end of it for a relatively reasonable price compared to if you were doing similar with GW. Archon Studios certainly aren't the only company doing terrain that would fit for Warcry, but they are doing it the right scale, they are doing it in plastic, which is always nice to work with, and the price is pretty good. So I do think they are a company to keep an eye on. I'm going to keep working on these pieces of kit, and hopefully you'll see them on the channel at some point soon. Thanks for making it all the way to the end. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Each week I put up a new video talking about one of Games Workshop's specialist games. The goal is always to try and make the best possible two-player experience. If this is something you'd find interesting, please subscribe to the channel and comment to let me know what you'd like to see in future.